The sky above the small town of Willow Creek was unusually dark for a summer afternoon. Clouds hung low, heavy with moisture, but no rain fell. Instead, an eerie silence blanketed the area, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant bark of a dog. Jake Carter stood on the porch of his cabin, staring up at the heavens with a mixture of curiosity and unease. Something felt wrong, off-kilter, like the world had shifted slightly out of place without anyone noticing. Jake wasn't one to get spooked easily. A former soldier turned survivalist, he'd spent years honing his skills in the wilderness. After leaving the military under less than ideal circumstances, he'd retreated to this remote corner of Alaska, seeking solitude and simplicity. Life here was predictable: hunt, fish, chop wood, repeat. But today, the predictability was gone, replaced by a gnawing sense that something big was about to happen. His thoughts were interrupted when Sam Mitchell, his neighbor from down the road, came jogging up the dirt path leading to Jake's cabin. Sam was breathing hard, his face pale and streaked with sweat despite the cool air. "Jake," he panted, stopping just short of the steps. "You've got to see this." "What is it?" Jake asked, already reaching for the rifle leaning against the wall beside him. He didn't need to ask why Sam looked so shaken. Whatever it was, it couldn't be good. I don't even know how to explain it," Sam stammered, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting something to appear behind him. "There are things in the sky, big things. They're not planes or drones. They're huge, metallic, and they're hovering over the forest." Jake frowned but didn't waste time questioning further. Grabbing his rifle, he followed Sam back toward the edge of the woods where the older man claimed to have seen the strange objects. As they approached the tree line, Jake noticed an unnatural stillness in the air. Birds weren't chirping, insects weren't buzzing, it was as though nature itself had paused. And then he saw them. 3 massive ships floated silently above the treetops, their sleek obsidian surfaces reflecting little light. Each vessel was shaped like a teardrop, smooth and featureless except for faint lines of glowing blue energy pulsing along their undersides. They made no sound, yet their presence was overwhelming, almost oppressive. Jake felt a chill run down his spine as he stared at the alien craft, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. Before he could say anything, movement caught his eye. Dozens of smaller objects detached from the underside of the largest ship, descending rapidly toward the ground. At first, Jake thought they might be some kind of reconnaissance drones, but as they drew closer, he realized they were far more menacing. These machines were biomechanical nightmares, part machine and part living organism, with razor-sharp appendages and glowing red eyes that scanned the terrain below. "Get back," Jake shouted, grabbing Sam by the arm and pulling him behind a fallen tree. The drones landed with a soft hiss, their legs unfolding like spider limbs as they began moving through the forest with terrifying speed and precision. One of them spotted Sam almost immediately, its head swiveling toward him before it charged forward with unnatural agility. Jake raised his rifle and fired, the shot hitting the creature square in the chest. For a moment it staggered, sparks flying from the impact point. But instead of collapsing, the drone seemed to absorb the damage, its metallic skin rippling as it repaired itself. It resumed its charge, faster than before, closing the distance between them in seconds. "Run!" Jake yelled, shoving Sam toward the cabin. He fired again and again, trying to buy them time, but the bullets did little more than slow the thing down. Behind them, 2 more drones emerged from the trees, cutting off their escape route. Panic surged through Jake as he realized there was nowhere left to go. Just as the lead drone lunged at him, a deafening roar split the air. A blur of motion slammed into the creature, sending it crashing into a nearby tree. Jake blinked in disbelief as he recognized the attacker, a black bear, impossibly large and ferocious, its teeth bared as it tore into the drone with savage intensity. The other drones hesitated, their glowing eyes flickering uncertainly as they assessed this new threat. Seizing the opportunity, Jake grabbed Sam and dragged him deeper into the woods, putting as much distance between them and the battle as possible. They didn't stop running until they reached the relative safety of Jake's cabin, barricading the door behind them and collapsing onto the floor, gasping for breath. What? What the hell was that? Sam finally managed to ask, his voice trembling. I don't know, Jake admitted, shaking his head. But whatever those things are, they're not friendly, and neither are those ships. As night fell, the distant hum of the alien vessels grew louder, vibrating through the walls of the cabin. Jake kept watch by the window, his rifle loaded and ready, while Sam huddled in a corner, clutching a flashlight like it might somehow protect him. Neither of them slept that night, too consumed by fear and uncertainty to close their eyes. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, Lisa Monroe sat, alone in her research facility near the Arctic Circle, staring at the data streaming across her computer screen. Her work focused on studying marine ecosystems beneath the ice. But lately, she'd been picking up unusual readings from deep within the Earth's crust. Strange vibrations, bursts of heat, and inexplicable shifts in magnetic fields. All signs pointed to something happening far below the surface. At first, Lisa assumed it was geological activity, perhaps an impending volcanic eruption. But when she cross-referenced the data with satellite imagery, she found something far more alarming. Massive structures hidden beneath layers of rock and ice were beginning to activate. Energy signatures unlike anything she'd ever seen pulsed steadily, growing stronger with each passing hour. She tried contacting her colleagues and superiors for guidance, but all communication channels had gone silent. Even emergency broadcasts were dead, replaced by static. It was as though the entire world had been cut off from itself, isolated and vulnerable. Lisa's hands trembled as she scrolled through the latest reports. Whatever was coming, it was bigger than anything humanity had faced before. And judging by the chaos unfolding outside her lab, strange lights in the sky, panicked messages from nearby towns, it was already here. Back in Willow Creek, Jake and Sam listened as the sounds of destruction grew louder. Explosions echoed in the distance, followed by screams that sent chills down their spines. The aliens weren't just observing, they were harvesting. Trees were being uprooted, buildings demolished, and people taken. Jake clenched his fists, anger and helplessness warring within him. He wanted to fight back, to do something. But against such overwhelming odds, what could he possibly do? For now, survival was the only option. But even as he told himself that, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The invaders had arrived and nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning brought no relief to Jake and Sam. The alien ship still loomed in the sky, their ominous presence casting long shadows over the forest. The drones had retreated for now, but the damage they left behind was everywhere. Trees were shredded into splinters, the ground torn apart as though some great beast had clawed through it. Smoke rose from the remains of nearby cabins, and the air smelled of burnt wood and something metallic that made Jake's stomach churn. Sam sat slumped on a chair inside the cabin, his face pale and drawn. He hadn't said much since their narrow escape the night before, his hands trembling every time he tried to hold a cup of coffee. Jake, on the other hand, was restless. He paced back and forth, glancing out the window every few minutes, his rifle never far from reach. "We can't stay here," he muttered finally, breaking the silence. "What do you mean?" Sam asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Where are we supposed to go? Those things are everywhere." "I don't know yet," Jake admitted, running a hand through his hair. "But sitting here waiting for them to come back isn't going to help us. We need supplies, a plan, something." Sam nodded slowly, though it was clear he didn't share Jake's confidence. "What about the bear?" he asked after a moment. "The one that saved us last night. Do you think there are more like it?" Jake hesitated. He'd been thinking about that too. The bear had been enormous, larger than any animal he'd ever seen in the wild. Its ferocity was unmatched, and it had taken down one of the drones with ease, at least temporarily. But could creatures like that really exist naturally? Or was there something else going on? Before Jake could answer, a faint buzzing noise filled the air. It grew louder, closer, until both men froze, staring at each other in panic. Jake grabbed his rifle and moved to the window, peering outside cautiously. A single drone hovered near the edge of the clearing, its glowing red eyes scanning the area methodically. It hadn't spotted them yet, but it was only a matter of time. "We've got to move," Jake whispered urgently, motioning for Sam to follow him. They slipped out the back door, keeping low as they crept toward the tree line. The drone's hum intensified as it turned in their direction, its movements jerky and precise. Jake held his breath, counting the seconds until it passed overhead. Just as they reached the cover of the trees, the drone let out a high-pitched screech. Jake didn't wait to see what happened next. He grabbed Sam by the arm and bolted deeper into the forest, weaving between trunks and leaping over fallen branches. Behind them, the sound of snapping wood signaled that the drone was in pursuit, its sharp legs tearing through vegetation like paper. They ran until their lungs burned and their legs threatened to give out. Finally, Jake spotted a shallow cave, hidden behind a cluster of boulders. Motioning for Sam to follow, he ducked inside, pulling the smaller man close as they pressed themselves against the cold stone wall. The drone's buzzing grew louder, circling the area just outside the entrance. For several agonizing minutes they waited, hearts pounding, praying it wouldn't find them. Eventually the noise faded, replaced by an eerie quiet. Jake exhaled, slowly, wiping sweat from his forehead. "That was too close," he murmured. Sam nodded weakly, his face ghostly white. Far to the north, Lisa Monroe was dealing with her own brand of terror. She hadn't slept all night, glued to her computer screen as she monitored the strange activity beneath the ice. The energy signatures were growing stronger, pulsing in rhythmic waves that matched the movement of the alien ships above. Whatever those structures were, they weren't natural, and they were waking up. Her lab was eerily silent except for the hum of equipment and the occasional creak of the building settling under the weight of the frozen landscape outside. Normally, Lisa found comfort in solitude, but today it felt suffocating. She kept expecting someone, anyone, to contact her to tell her what was happening. But the radio remained silent and her phone was dead, refusing to connect to any network. Frustrated, she decided to take matters into her own hands. Pulling on her heavy coat and gloves, she stepped outside, bracing herself against the biting wind. The sky was dark, clouds swirling ominously as flashes of light illuminated the horizon. It looked like lightning, but there was no thunder, no storm, just bursts of unnatural brightness that sent shivers down her spine. Lisa climbed into her snowmobile and revved the engine, heading toward the coordinates where the strongest energy readings were coming from. The journey was treacherous, the icy terrain slick and uneven, but she pushed forward, determined to uncover the truth. As she approached the site, the ground began to tremble slightly, vibrations traveling up through the handlebars of the vehicle. She parked a safe distance away and continued on foot, her boots crunching through the snow. Ahead of her, a massive fissure had opened in the ice, steam rising from the depths below. Peering over the edge, Lisa gasped. Beneath the surface, machinery unlike anything she'd ever seen stretched endlessly into the darkness. Glowing conduits pulsed with energy, connecting to massive nodes that hummed with power. It was alien technology, unmistakably part of the invaders' operation. As she stood there, stunned, a shadow moved across the fissure. Lisa spun around, her heart racing, to see one of the biomechanical drones standing just a few feet away. Its red eyes locked onto her and she froze, unable to look away. The creature tilted its head, studying her curiously, as if deciding whether she posed a threat. Summoning every ounce of courage, Lisa raised her hands slowly, showing she wasn't armed. "I'm not your enemy," she said, her voice steady, despite the fear coursing through her veins. To her surprise, the drone hesitated, its body language shifting slightly. Instead of attacking, it emitted a series of clicks and whirs, almost like communication. Before Lisa could react further, a loud crack echoed through the air. The ice beneath her feet gave way, sending her tumbling into the fissure. She screamed as she fell, landing hard on a ledge several feet down. Pain shot through her leg, but she forced herself to stay conscious, scrambling backward to avoid falling farther. Above her, the drone peered over the edge, its glowing eyes narrowing. Then, without warning, it leapt down beside her, moving with startling grace. Lisa braced herself for the worst, but instead of attacking, The creature extended one of its claw-like appendages, gesturing toward her injured leg. Confused, she watched as it scanned her wound, emitting another series of clicks. "Are you helping me?" she whispered, incredulous. The drone didn't respond, but its behavior suggested it wasn't entirely hostile. Still wary, Lisa allowed it to nudge her gently toward a safer section of the ledge. Once she was stable, the creature turned and climbed back up to the surface, disappearing into the blizzard. Back in the forest, Jake and Sam emerged cautiously from the cave, their nerves still raw from the encounter with the drone. "We need to find shelter," Jake said firmly, scanning the horizon. "Somewhere defensible with food and water." "There's a ranger station a few miles east," Sam offered hesitantly. "It's abandoned this time of year, but it should have supplies." Jake nodded. "Let's go." The trek was grueling, the terrain rough and unforgiving. By the time they reached the ranger station, both men were exhausted, their clothes soaked with sweat despite the chill in the air. The building was old and weathered, its wooden walls sagging slightly under the weight of years. Inside, however, they found canned goods, bottled water, and even a first aid kit. Small comforts in an increasingly hostile world. As they settled, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. He stepped outside to investigate, rifle in hand, and froze when he saw tracks in the dirt. Large clawed prints led away from the station, vanishing into the trees. They weren't human or alien. Whatever had left them was alive, and it was close. "Sam," Jake called, his voice tense. "We're not alone." Inside, Sam paled. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Jake replied, gripping his rifle tightly, "there's something out there, something big." The two men exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of their situation pressing down on them. The aliens weren't the only predators in the forest anymore, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the land, Jake couldn't help but wonder, were they truly facing the end of humanity, or the beginning of something far worse? The ranger station was quiet, but the silence felt heavy, like a storm about to break. Jake and Sam sat huddled around a small table littered with cans of food they'd scavenged from the pantry. Neither man spoke much. Their minds were too busy, racing through what they'd seen. The alien ships, the biomechanical drones, and now the mysterious tracks outside. Every sound, no matter how faint, made them jump. The wind rattling the windows, branches scraping against the roof, even the creak of the wooden floorboards underfoot. It all seemed ominous. Jake kept glancing toward the door, his rifle resting across his lap. He knew they couldn't stay here forever. Sooner or later, the aliens, or whatever else was out there, would find them. But for now, it was better than nothing. "We need to figure out what's going on," he said finally, breaking the tense silence. "There has to be someone else out there who knows more than we do." Sam nodded weakly, picking at the label on an unopened can of beans. "You think anyone's left alive?" "I don't know," Jake admitted, his voice low. "But if there's even a chance, we have to try." Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away in New York City, Ryan Bennett was having trouble believing his own eyes. The city that never slept had fallen eerily silent. Streets once teeming with life were now deserted, littered with abandoned cars and shattered glass. Smoke curled into the sky from burning buildings, and the distant hum of alien ships filled the air. It wasn't just chaos, it was devastation. Ryan had always been a fixer, someone who could take apart an engine or hack into a faulty system and put it back together again. That skill had landed him a job as a mechanic in a bustling garage, fixing everything from motorcycles to luxury sedans. Now, though, those skills felt useless. How do you fix a world falling apart? He was rummaging through the garage when he heard a soft knock at the door. Startled, he grabbed a wrench and approached cautiously. Peering through the grimy window, he saw a woman standing outside, her face pale and streaked with dirt. She looked scared but determined. "Are you alone?" she asked when Ryan opened the door. Her voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. "For now," Ryan replied, stepping aside to let her in. "Who are you?" "Clara Hayes," she said, brushing a strand of hair out of her face. I was a nurse. My family, they're gone. Her voice cracked on the last word, and she quickly looked away, blinking back tears. Ryan didn't press her for details. Instead, he handed her a bottle of water and gestured for her to sit down. What happened? The aliens came, Clara said simply, as if the explanation needed no elaboration. They took people, dragged them off like cattle. Some fought back, but... She trailed off, shaking her head. It doesn't matter. What matters is surviving. Ryan nodded slowly. He'd seen enough to know she was right. Any idea where we should go? Somewhere safe? Clara hesitated, then pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her pocket. I overheard some survivors talking before I got here. They mentioned something about monsters being unleashed, genetically engineered creatures designed to fight the invaders. Monsters? Ryan repeated skeptically. You mean like animals? Not exactly, Clara said, unfolding the paper to reveal crude notes scrawled in pencil. Apparently, the government had this secret project called Chimera. They created hybrids, part animal, part machine, to defend Earth if aliens ever attacked. Nobody knows if they actually worked, but rumors are spreading that someone activated them. Ryan frowned, studying the notes. If these things exist, why haven't we seen them yet? Maybe they're waiting for the right moment, Clara suggested. Or maybe whoever controls them isn't sure how to use them yet. Ryan tapped the table thoughtfully. If what Clara said was true and he had no reason to doubt her, it might be their best shot at fighting back. But finding these so-called monsters wouldn't be easy. Do you know where they're supposed to be? There's a bunker somewhere. In Nevada, Clara replied. That's all I've got. Nevada's a long way from here, Ryan muttered, rubbing the back of his neck, and getting there won't be easy. We don't have a choice, Clara insisted, her tone firmer now. If we stay here, we die. If we go, at least we have a chance. Ryan met her gaze and saw the same determination reflected in her eyes that he felt brewing inside himself. All right, he said after a moment. Let's gear up and get moving. Back in Alaska, Jake and Sam decided to investigate the tracks leading away from the ranger station. Armed with rifles and flashlights, they followed the trail cautiously, staying close to each other. The prints were massive, far larger than any bear or wolf they'd ever encountered. Whatever had made them was powerful, and probably dangerous. The trail led them deeper into the forest, where the trees grew thicker and the light dimmer. Shadows danced across the ground, making it hard to tell what was real and what was imagined. Jake held his breath as they rounded a bend, spotting something ahead, a clearing bathed in moonlight. In the center of the clearing stood a creature unlike anything either man had ever seen. It was enormous, easily twice the size of a grizzly bear, with sleek black fur and glowing green eyes that pierced the darkness. Its body was muscular and streamlined, built for speed and power. But what truly set it apart were the metallic plates fused seamlessly into its skin, glinting faintly in the moonlight. Claws tipped its paws, razor-sharp and gleaming like steel. For a moment, neither Jake nor Sam moved, afraid that even the slightest sound would draw the creature's attention. Then, without warning, it turned its head, locking eyes with Jake. Time seemed to freeze as man and beast stared at each other, neither flinching. It's one of them, Sam whispered, his voice trembling. One of the monsters. Jake didn't respond. He couldn't take his eyes off the creature. There was something almost intelligent in its gaze, as if it were sizing them up, not as prey, but as potential allies. Before either man could react, a loud crash echoed through the forest. The creature's ears twitched and it let out a low growl before disappearing into the shadows with startling speed. Moments later, a group of drones emerged from the trees, their red eyes scanning the area methodically. Move, Jake hissed, grabbing Sam by the arm and pulling him back toward the ranger station. They ran as fast as they could, dodging roots and rocks as the drones closed in behind them. Just as they reached the edge of the clearing, one of the creatures lunged, its claws slicing through the air mere inches from Jake's back. They stumbled into the safety of the ranger station, slamming the door shut and barricading it with whatever furniture they could find. Breathing heavily, they listened as the drones circled the building, their mechanical whirring growing louder and more insistent. "They're not giving up," Sam said, his voice barely audible over the noise. "No," Jake agreed, gripping his rifle tightly. "But neither are we." As the night wore on, Jake found himself thinking about the creature in the clearing. Was it truly a monster or something else entirely? And if it was part of this chimera project Clara had mentioned, did that mean others like it were out there, waiting for their moment to strike? Whatever the answers, one thing was clear. Humanity was no longer alone in this fight. For better or worse, Earth had its own predators now, and they might just be the key to survival. The morning sun filtered weakly through the cracks in the ranger station's wooden walls, casting long shadows across the cluttered room. Jake and Sam sat on the floor, their backs against the wall, eating cold beans straight from the can. Neither man had slept much during the night. The drones had lingered outside for hours, circling the building like vultures waiting for their prey to slip up. But eventually they'd moved on, leaving an unsettling quiet behind. Jake stared at the barricaded door, his mind racing. He couldn't shake the image of the creature he'd seen in the clearing. The hybrid beast with glowing green eyes and metallic plates fused into its flesh. It wasn't just big or scary. It was different. There was something almost purposeful about it, as if it knew exactly what it was doing. And then there were the rumors Clara had mentioned. Genetically engineered monsters created to fight alien invaders. Could that thing have been part of Project Chimera? "We need answers," Jake said suddenly, breaking the silence. "If those rumors are true, if these monsters exist, then we need to find out more." Sam looked up, his spoon halfway to his mouth. "How? We're stuck here, Jake. Those things out there aren't going to let us wander around freely." "No," Jake replied, his voice firm. "But sitting here isn't helping either. If there's a chance these creatures can fight back, we owe it to ourselves and everyone else to find them." Sam hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "All right, what's the plan?" Meanwhile, Ryan and Clara were making slow progress toward Nevada. The roads were treacherous, littered with abandoned cars and debris from the alien attacks. They'd managed to salvage a beat-up SUV from the garage where they'd met, but it wasn't built for long journeys. Every bump in the road made the engine groan, and the gas tank was already running low. They stopped at a deserted gas station to scavenge supplies. Ryan worked quickly, siphoning fuel from other vehicles while Clara kept watch, her hands gripping a baseball bat she'd found in the back seat. The air was thick with tension, every rustle of leaves or distant sound setting their nerves on edge. As Ryan filled the last container, Clara spotted something moving in the distance, a figure stumbling out of the woods. At first, she thought, it might be another survivor, but as it drew closer, she realized it wasn't human. Its movements were jerky, unnatural, and its skin shimmered faintly in the sunlight. It was one of the aliens, or at least part of one. "Ryan," Clara hissed, backing away slowly. "We've got company." Ryan turned just in time to see the creature lurch forward, its elongated limbs stretching unnaturally as it closed the gap between them. Without hesitation, he grabbed a crowbar from the ground and charged, swinging hard. The blow connected with a sickening crunch, sending the creature sprawling. But it didn't stay down for long. Within seconds, it was back, on its feet, its body regenerating before their eyes. "Get in the car!" Ryan shouted, tossing the crowbar aside and grabbing Clara's arm. They barely made it inside before the creature lunged again, its claws scraping against the window as the SUV roared to life. Clara clutched the dashboard as Ryan sped away, glancing nervously in the rearview mirror. "That thing healed itself," she muttered, her voice trembling. "How are we supposed to fight something like that?" "We'll figure it out," Ryan said, though his knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "We have to." Back in Alaska, Jake and Sam decided to take a risk. Under the cover of darkness, they slipped out of the ranger station, heading back toward the clearing where they'd seen the hybrid creature. Armed with flashlights and rifles, they moved cautiously, scanning the trees for any sign of movement. The forest was eerily quiet, as if even the animals knew better than to make noise. When they reached the clearing, they found no trace of the creature. The only evidence it had ever been there were the massive claw marks gouged into the earth. Jake crouched beside them, running his fingers over the deep grooves. "It was real," he murmured. "Whatever it is, it's strong. And dangerous," Sam added, keeping his rifle trained on the surrounding trees. "What now?" Jake stood, his expression thoughtful. "We follow the tracks. Maybe it'll lead us somewhere useful." The trail led them deeper into the wilderness, winding through dense underbrush and rocky terrain. Hours passed without any sign of the creature or the drones. Just when Sam began to think they'd lost the trail entirely, Jake held up a hand, signaling for silence. Ahead of them, the forest opened up into a wide ravine, its bottom shrouded in mist. And there, standing on a ledge overlooking the ravine, was the creature. It hadn't noticed them yet, its attention focused downward. Jake motioned for Sam to stay put while he crept closer, careful not to make a sound. As he approached, he realized the creature wasn't alone. Below in the ravine, several drones were gathered around what looked like some kind of device, a pulsating sphere of blue energy embedded in the ground. The creature growled softly, its muscles tensing as it prepared to leap. Jake watched in awe as it sprang into action, landing among the drones with devastating force. Claws slashed through metal, and jaws snapped shut with bone-crushing power. The drones fought back, firing beams of energy that scorched the air, but the creature moved too fast, dodging their attacks with uncanny precision. Jake raised his rifle, aiming carefully. He didn't want to hurt the creature, if anything. He wanted to help it, but as he lined up his shot, one of the drones turned its glowing red eyes toward him. A beam of light shot past his head, narrowly missing him. "Jake!" Sam shouted from behind, firing blindly into the chaos. His shots hit nothing, but they were enough to draw the drone's attention away from the creature. Seizing the opportunity, the hybrid beast tore through the remaining machines, reducing them to scrap metal in seconds. When the last drone fell, the creature turned its gaze on Jake and Sam. For a moment, no one moved. Then slowly, the beast lowered its head in what almost looked like a bow before disappearing into the mist. Later that night, Jake and Sam returned to the ranger station, their minds buzzing with questions. "That thing saved us," Sam said, still shaken. "Why would it do that?" "Maybe it knows we're on the same side," Jake suggested. "Or maybe it sees us as tools, something it can use to fight the aliens." "Either way, we should be careful," Sam warned. "We don't know what it really wants." Jake nodded, staring out the window at the dark forest beyond. He couldn't explain why, but he felt a strange sense of hope. The creature had shown them that the aliens weren't invincible. If humanity could harness the power of those hybrids, if they could work together, there might still be a chance. Little did Jake know, others were thinking the same thing. Deep beneath the Nevada desert, hidden in a decommissioned military bunker, Dr. Alan Brooks pored over data screens, monitoring the activity of Earth's newest defenders. The creatures were waking up, responding to the alien threat with instincts honed by years of experimentation. But controlling them wouldn't be easy. And as the battle for Earth's survival intensified, the line between ally and enemy would blur more than anyone anticipated. The journey to Nevada was long and grueling for Ryan and Clara. The roads were in bad shape, littered with abandoned cars and debris from the chaos caused by the alien invasion. Every few miles they had to stop and clear a path or find a detour. Supplies were running low, and the tension between them grew thicker with each passing hour. They hadn't seen another human being in days, only glimpses of the biomechanical drones patrolling the skies and the occasional alien scout wandering through the ruins of towns. Clara sat in the passenger seat, clutching the crumpled piece of paper with the rough map she'd sketched. It wasn't much, just a series of landmarks leading to the supposed location of the bunker, but it was all they had. "We're close," she said finally, breaking the silence. "If the rumors are right, we should see the entrance soon." Ryan nodded, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. He didn't trust the map entirely. It looked like something drawn in haste, but he trusted Clara. She'd been calm under pressure so far, and her determination kept him going when doubt crept in. Still, The thought of what might be waiting for them at the bunker weighed heavily on his mind. Were these monsters real? And if they were, could humanity really control them? As they drove deeper into the desert, the landscape became barren and desolate. Sand stretched endlessly in every direction, broken only by jagged rocks and the occasional tumbleweed rolling across the road. The sun beat down mercilessly, turning the inside of the SUV into an oven. Sweat dripped down Ryan's face as he squinted through the windshield, searching for any sign of the bunker. "There," Claire exclaimed, suddenly pointing ahead. In the distance, a rocky outcrop rose from the flat terrain, its surface scarred with cracks and fissures. At first glance, it looked natural, but as they got closer, Ryan noticed something odd. A faint line etched into the rock, almost invisible unless you were looking for it. "That's it," Clara said, her voice tinged with both excitement and fear. "The entrance has to be there." They parked the car a safe distance away and approached on foot, keeping their weapons ready. Up close, the line became clearer, a massive steel door embedded in the rock, disguised to blend in with the surroundings. There was no handle or keypad, just a small panel on the side that glowed faintly blue. "Now what?" Ryan asked, eyeing the panel suspiciously. Clara hesitated, then pressed her hand against it. To their surprise, the panel lit up, scanning her palm before emitting a soft beep. The door groaned open, revealing a dark passageway leading underground. "Well, that was easy," Ryan muttered, though his tone suggested he didn't believe it for a second. Inside, the air was cool and stale, carrying the faint smell of metal and chemicals. Fluorescent lights flickered to life as they descended, illuminating rows of equipment lining the walls. Monitors displayed data streams and surveillance footage, some showing live feeds of the alien ships hovering above Earth. It was clear this place hadn't been abandoned completely. It was operational. At the end of the corridor, they found a man sitting at a desk surrounded by stacks of papers and computer screens. He looked up as they entered, his expression unreadable. "You're late," he said simply, leaning back in his chair. "Who are you?" Ryan demanded, raising his weapon cautiously. "Dr. Alan Brooks," the man replied, unfazed by the gun, pointed at him. "And you must be the ones who've been hearing rumors about Project Chimera." Clara stepped forward, lowering her bat slightly. "Are the rumors true? Did you create monsters?" Brooks smirked, standing up to pace slowly around the room. "Monsters is such a crude term. Let's call them hybrids. Genetically engineered creatures designed to adapt, survive, and fight. We started this project years ago, preparing for scenarios exactly like this one. Unfortunately, funding dried up and the program was mothballed. Until now." "So you're saying these things exist?" Ryan asked, still skeptical. "Where are they?" "They're here," Brooks said, gesturing toward a heavy steel door at the far end of the room. "But activating them isn't as simple as flipping a switch. These hybrids are powerful, yes, but they're also unpredictable. If we release them without proper planning, they could turn on us just as easily as the aliens." Clara frowned. "Then why reactivate them at all? What choice do we have?" Brooks sighed, rubbing his temples. "Because humanity doesn't have any other options. The Vorlak, the aliens, are relentless. They won't stop until they've stripped this planet bare. If we want to stand a chance, we need every weapon we can get our hands on, even if it means unleashing forces we don't fully understand." Ryan exchanged a glance with Clara. Neither of them liked the sound of that, but they couldn't argue with the logic. "What do you need from us?" he asked finally. "For starters, help me monitor their behavior once I bring them online," Brooks replied, moving to a nearby console. Each hybrid has unique abilities tailored to specific environments. Some thrive in water, others in forests, or urban areas. Understanding how they operate will be key to using them effectively. He began typing commands into the system, and moments later, the steel door slid open with a hiss. Beyond it lay a series of containment chambers, each housing a creature unlike anything Ryan or Clara had ever seen. One chamber contained a massive serpent-like beast covered in shimmering scales, its eyes glowing with an inner light. Another held a wolf-like creature with razor-sharp claws and metallic fur that seemed to ripple like liquid steel. In the largest chamber, A towering shark-like monstrosity floated silently in a tank filled with murky water, its dorsal fin cutting through the surface like a blade. "These are your defenders," Brooks said, watching their reactions closely. "The plasma serpent, the razorback wolverine, and the behemoth shark. Each one is a masterpiece of genetic engineering, and each one is capable of turning the tide of this war." Clara stared at the creatures, her heart pounding. They were terrifying, yes, but also awe-inspiring. "How do we wake them up?" she asked softly. "Carefully," Brooks replied, pulling up another set of controls. "I'll start with the Wolverine. It's the most stable of the three, relatively speaking. Once it's active, we'll assess its response to stimuli and adjust accordingly." As he initiated the awakening sequence, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing with fire. These hybrids weren't just tools. They were living, breathing entities with instincts far beyond human comprehension. What would happen when they were unleashed on the world? Would they truly fight for humanity, or would they carve their own path? The first signs of movement came from the Wolverine's chamber. Its glowing eyes snapped open, and it let out a low growl that reverberated through the bunker. Then, with startling speed, it lunged at the reinforced glass separating it from the outside world. The barrier held, but barely. "It knows we're here," Clara whispered, taking a step back instinctively. "Yes," Brooks said, his voice calm despite the tension in the air. "And it's eager to hunt." Meanwhile, Jake and Sam had decided to head south, following the trail left by the hybrid creature they'd encountered. Their hope was to find others like it, or perhaps even locate the source of the rumors about Project Chimera. The journey was slow, hindered by the rugged terrain and constant threat of alien patrols. But they pressed on, driven by the belief that answers lay somewhere ahead. One evening, as they camped near a river, Jake noticed something strange in the water. At first he thought it was just the reflection of the moon, but then he saw movement, a shadow gliding beneath the surface. Grabbing his rifle, he moved closer, peering into the depths. "What is it?" Sam asked nervously, joining him. "I'm not sure," Jake replied, his voice low. "But whatever it is, it's big." Before either of them could react, the water exploded upward, sending spray flying in all directions. Emerging from the river was a monstrous form, the unmistakable silhouette of the behemoth shark, its teeth gleaming in the moonlight. For a moment, it hovered just above the surface, its glowing eyes locking onto theirs. Then, with a deafening roar, it dove back underwater and disappeared. Jake and Sam stood frozen, their hearts racing. "That thing, it's real," Sam stammered. "It's alive." "And it's coming for the aliens," Jake said, a spark of hope igniting within him. "Which means we're not alone in this fight anymore." Unbeknownst to them, the battle for Earth's survival was about to escalate. The hybrids were awake, and the Vorlak wouldn't know what hit them. But as the lines between ally and enemy blurred, one question remained. Who would emerge victorious, and at what cost?